March 13th, 2006, I got one of those phone calls that no parent wants to get. It was the police. They said there'd been an accident at the Halifax Armories. My son was a reservist with the Princess Louise Fusiliers. He was 18 years old. His name is Brad Howell. And they said there'd been an accident at the Armories and I should come to the hospital. But I thought he must mean a car accident because Brad should have been on his way home. So I called out to my other kids that there'd been an accident and Brad was in the hospital, and I was going in, and I'd give them a call or let them know as soon as I had any information. So I got to the hospital, and there were police everywhere and military people, and they just started walking me to the family room. And I just remember thinking, you know, please, not the family room. This can't be happening. And I was waiting, and a nurse finally came in, and I asked, how was my son? I want to see my son. And she said, hasn't anybody told you? And told me what? She said he'd been crushed between a forklift and a truck. She said she had no word on his condition, and a doctor would be in to see me shortly. And then I saw the priest, and I thought, oh my God, not the priest. And I just knew. A few days later, I got a call from the hospital to come in. They had something to tell me. So I went in. And they said that when they had rushed Brad into surgery to try to save his life, but when they started to do the autopsy, they discovered that instead of putting the breathing tube into his lungs, it had accidentally been put into his stomach. So any hope he had of survival was taken away. They said that his injuries were severe. They thought that maybe he wouldn't have made it. But we never got the chance to find out. I felt almost forgotten. I mean, after the initial disclosure, I almost felt they were like, phew, we got that out of the way. I think they were very courageous during the disclosure. They didn't hold anything back. But there wasn't an offer of follow-up or referrals, or even here's some bereavement groups if at some point you're ready for that. The military offered, because he was a reservist, they offered a little bit more support. They, you know, would send people around every so often. We would get a phone call from the Padre, you know, checking in, which was nice because we were in a place, we hadn't lived in Nova Scotia long. We didn't know very many people. So, but the hospital itself, there really wasn't any further fault. They leave you a phone number and say, well, we'll call if you have questions, but you don't have the strength for that, and you don't have the energy to do anything. Seems to take when you're grieving the death of a child, everything takes such monumental energy. And it's really hard to find it. People talk about one day at a time, but it's more like one breath at a time. So that was the story of my one son, which led to the story of my other son, who we had just a number of losses at a row. My dad had died just before Brad. And we had a move that took us away from lifetime family and friends. He had a learning disability, so school was always kind of a place of misery for him. At the time, he was 14. He tried to kill himself. And we went through a year of what could only be described as an oxymoron of mental health system. He overdosed, and I took him to the hospital, and they admitted him, but they really kind of didn't do anything. It was more like a babysitting facility. And they made an urgent referral to outpatient mental health. The referral was misdirected. There was great delays in getting treatment because of tracking down referrals that went to the wrong place, and people that said they sent them, and fax machines that were out of paper. And when I phoned to say where was this urgent referral, the lady said, well, we don't have it here. So then I phoned the emergency department, who said they had sent it, and they said, well, we sent it. So then I phoned the other lady, and she said, well, I didn't say they didn't send it. I said we didn't get it. Please help us. And it was just a system that didn't listen and didn't hear. You're already going through so much, and you're trying to chase down these referrals, and you're trying to, and he would do things like it was the winter time, and he'd go off in the woods behind our house and say, you're going to have 2 dead sons. It was just terrible. All the medication, the house, and knives, ropes, anything, I locked in the trunk of my car and slept with the keys. I took a leave from work, and then I took a different job with lower pay but better hours, so that I was home when he got off the bus and made sure he got on the bus in the morning to school. He was getting into fights at school. He was getting involved with, drugs and alcohol, and he was just going down this slope. And I couldn't get anybody to see that a lot of what he was doing was like, it was grief, it was acting out. But they seemed to be more interested in how they could meet their needs as a system than how they could meet our needs as a patient and a family. And we were desperate. He would make some more attempts, and then ultimately we went back to, we were still being followed up by mental health. And the psychiatrist said, well, I think we can discharge him from mental health care because, there doesn't seem any serious threat of self-harm. I couldn't believe it. I just wondered what constitutes a serious threat. What is it going to take? And I don't know if you can imagine the desperation and the vigilance of being that mother. Throughout all of this, I still have 2 other sons with their own gifts and challenges, as all kids do. And I was a single parent for all of my sons for many years. So it was almost a year to the day at this point. He took another overdose that was ultimately almost fatal. He was in fulminant liver failure. He denied that he had taken any drugs or medication. He denied any kind of overdose. It was just a sixth sense. And it was just the lucky accident of finding him in time that separates me from many others that weren't so fortunate. The ambulance took him to the adult hospital because they weren't sure how old he was. It was a big kerfuffle. And instead of taking him to the IWK, which was for the children's hospital, and he was admitted, and they had a team there assess him, and a psychiatric team assessed him once he was out of the woods and was doing better. And they were extremely helpful, gave us some good direction, and we were able to find some meaningful help through them, which was very helpful. And I wrote the IWK hospital and I asked for a review of his care. And they did do that, and I got an apology. They said there were some very serious gaps in his care and his follow-up. They said that they had done a thorough review of his chart and his care and his pathway through the youth mental health system or the pediatric mental health system, and that there were so many gaps and misses and opportunities missed where perhaps we could have escaped that hell sooner. Perhaps we wouldn't have ended up in a situation where he's almost needs a liver transplant. Perhaps he would have been able to be successful and finish school instead of spending his time back and forth in hospital. Well, it does give me great joy every day to see how well he's done, and that you can heal, and that you can come out of the other side when you get the right kind of help. I really hope that what people take away from our story or hearing about our experiences is to ask people what they need. How can I serve you today? How can I meet your needs today? Don't tell me what I need. Don't dictate what my pathway will be. Join me and ask me what it looks like from my view and how you can help on that path. I hope that's what people will remember.